So a little while ago, I put up a post on my channel asking you guys to drop anything you wanted in the comments. So today, I'm going to be reacting to every one of those comments. Now, with that said, let's get into it. Starting off from Hunter Nixon Fishing 2500, he says, the original 2004 chase format was far and away better than what we have today. Perfect balance of fairness and entertainment. And I agree, the original chase format was decent, but the problem was that it got really exploited in the late 2000s, so that's probably why it got scrapped. From Nitrixel, in my opinion, NASCAR should have kept the chase format because it showed that drivers can step up their game and be consistent to fight for a championship. The playoffs influenced drivers to do some stupid moves just to advance. There's been many examples of this, and this is why the playoffs are only for entertainment purposes. The most recent example of people doing stupid moves was Austin Dillon, a few weeks ago at Richmond. No surprise there. The original chase format, like I said a minute ago, did force people to step up their game, and it was the perfect balance between entertainment and fairness. So, 100% agree. From @Harvick29, hot take about schedules. You can put any track at any point of the year with a full points format and make it be whatever. However, you need certain tracks at certain points of the year for a playoff/chase format. Example, the rumor that Talladega will be in the middle race in the round of 8 for 2025, when if they really valued entertainment, they would put it in the elimination race of the round of 16. Also, great work on the channel, love your series of videos, keep up the good work. Thanks for the compliment, but this really isn't a hot take, this is just kind of, true. I wouldn't consider this a hot take, because he is right, you can put any track at any point in the schedule you want with a full season points format because it doesn't matter, because you don't have to have certain cutoff races to provide entertainment for fans. But with the playoff format, you need to have certain tracks at certain points to provide that entertainment. So this really isn't a hot take, just more of a true statement. From Van Drugman, Joey Logano is the most underrated driver right now and of all time. Honest opinion on Joey Logano, he is probably one of the most elite drivers in the Cup Series, but I wouldn't consider him underrated. I do think he's in the middle of a slump right now, just given how he's performed the last 2 seasons, and this year especially, he's just been awful. But, I wouldn't consider him underrated per se. Next up from Ming454, Busch is the reason of his problems and not RCR. Honestly, I think it's actually a little bit of both. Because RCR, let's be real here, they are not as good as they were with Tyler Reddick and Kyle Busch the first half of the season in 2023. They just haven't been that good. I think RCR is not providing the cars that Kyle Busch needs, and I think Kyle Busch is trying to overdrive it, and so he's making more uncharacteristic mistakes. But won't disagree. Next up from Braden Bunch 58, NASCAR should just scrap the Gen 7 car, replace it with the Xfinity COT, put a Gen 7/6 body over it, and heck, might as well call it a Gen 8 Cup car. Okay, I've had some comments like this, but I'm going to say the same thing I did in the last type video I did like this. You people are not engineers, so saying that just do this and this will happen just does not work. You need testing. You need at-track days to figure this stuff out. I don't think the current gen car is really that bad as people say. Now sure, the short tracks are a little lackluster, but this should kind of just be expected. The car has more grip, so it's going to happen naturally. But I don't think the racing is near as bad as everybody says it is. I do think it needs some work, but I actually think it's a decent car and they will figure it out eventually. From Journey Jeff Gordon Fan 24. Jocko Flacco, the rhesus monkey, who was a co-pilot in 1953 with Tim Flock, has an average finish of 9.375 over the span of 8 races. This stat is actually true, and it's kind of wild that it's actually better than the entire Cup Series right now. Next, from Jester Nikolai 8, hot take, Chase Purdy should have a few Xfinity starts. Now, I don't really get why some people are high on Chase Purdy. When I did my overrated, underrated video a while back, everybody was saying that Chase Purdy was so underrated, but I pulled up his stat sheet. It's not good. In 92 races, he only has 20 top 10s and 4 top 5s, 0 wins and 0 playoff appearances. The dude has just done nothing. And I don't get why people are so high on him, and he's done all this while driving for top-notch equipment. He drove for GMS, Hattori Enterprises, Kyle Busch Motorsports, and Spire. He just hasn't done anything, and I don't really get all the hype. Next, from Angel Munoz 19, Gen 6 could have been as good as Gen 4 if they kept the high horsepower. Now again, high horsepower isn't just the answer to everything like everybody thinks it is. It's just not. Now I'm going to say something kind of controversial. I don't think the 550 package was as bad as everyone made it out to be. I'm not saying it was good, but I'm also not saying it was terrible. I just think that everybody at first was all like, this is the greatest package ever. That's all I heard. And that it was putting on great races. That's all I heard. Everybody was so high on it. And then a certain race at Kansas in 2020, everybody started hating it because all the big YouTubers started hating it. I just didn't get it. And anyway, high horsepower is not the answer to everything. The Gen 6 car was dynamically not really a great race car. It was just overly aero sensitive, and it was obvious. So, I disagree with you. Next, from Uncle T for Life, he asked me, how long have you watched NASCAR and what got you into the sport? So, we're going to take a little bit of a story time here. So, I was born in 2005, and what happened was in 2008, I was 3 years old, and I watched my first race on TV because my dad was really into it at the time, but I wasn't like really into it from that race. So, I kind of casually watched it for a few more years. Like, I think the first race I truly remember was 2011 at Talladega, the fall race. I just remember that race. I don't think it was Clint Boyer that won, but that's the first race I really remember watching. But I just kind of casually watched it. Like, my brother gave me a few of his hand-me-down die-casts he had. I love those things to death. I played with them. Like, there's no paint left on them if I go back and pick them up. But anyway, so I think it was 2012. Yeah, it was 2012. The Watkins Glen race. I remember walking in. My dad was watching it. And just seeing Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, and Marcos Ambrose just go at it, I was just mesmerized. My little 7-year-old brain was just wowed by it. And I started watching every race from there on out. So in 2013, that was like my full first season I watched. I watched every Cup, Xfinity truck race that I could. I was watching every race. But in 2015, when Jeff Gordon retired, I was very sad because he was my favorite driver. The reason why he was my favorite driver was because that was the first diecast I got, was the 2002 DuPont car. So he was just my favorite driver because I love the colorful paint schemes, like a little 5-year-old would. But anyway, so after 2015, I won't say I went to casual viewing, but I wasn't paying as much attention in the races in 2016. Like, beforehand, I was watching every Xfinity, every truck race. I think in 2016, I watched maybe 2 truck races and not even half the Xfinity races that year, and I just watched every Cup race. 2017 was more the same, but I think I watched like maybe 3 Xfinity races and 1 truck race that entire year. But in 2018, I don't think I watched a single race across any of the 3 series. Because 2017, I just remember that season really sucking. Not because of Truex, just because the racing really wasn't that good. So I just didn't enjoy it. So anyway, after a while, I think it was halfway through 2019, and everybody was saying that like the racing was better, it's under new management. And I don't remember where I heard that from, but I started watching again, and I was like, man, this is actually pretty decent. And so I started watching every Xfinity truck and Cup race in 2020 again, and I haven't missed anything since. So, next up from JJ9487, stage racing is good, just remove the cautions. Now, some of you longer time viewers probably know that I'm not the biggest fan of stage racing, and one of the reasons is cautions. I just think it's a cheap way for NASCAR just to throw out the competition caution, basically. But the reason I really just don't like stage racing is because it allows for somebody who is not the winner to score more points than the winner. And I just don't agree with it. You know, it's actually possible that on the Coke 600 weekend, the guy finishing 24th, and if they win every stage, can get more points than the winner. and that just doesn't sit right with me. So that's why I don't like stage racing. From the Polar Express 1225 Productions. In my opinion, Austin Dillon should be in the playoffs because of his win at Richmond, and Joey Logano should be suspended 3 races following his actions post-race, and the wing COT could have tape on the back lid so it would keep it from flipping. We're going to break this down. Austin Dillon should be in the playoffs. I see why a lot of people think that, but I don't think he should be, because I think the move was a little bit too rough. Now, I know I made a post saying that his move was semi-justified, but I don't think that the move itself was right. I just think that the people complaining about it were just being overly hateful. That's just the way I viewed it. But I don't think he should be in the playoffs, and I think NASCAR really did make the right call. I just wish they would make the call at the track and have it be final instead of dragging it out for 3 weeks. But Joey Logano should be suspended 3 races. I think that's a little much. I think about a $200,000 fine would have been justified because he did almost run over a child. And the wing COT should have tape on the back lid so it would keep from flipping. I don't see how that would work. If you're watching this, just please care to explain. And he actually followed up this comment and said, to add to that wing COT, should have kept the 2011 style of front end, and then he should have not penalized Dale Jr., because if they did not, he would have been the 2004 champion. Whew. Oh man, Junior fans, yikes. Okay, once again, the COT 2011 style front end. Now, I will say the COT wasn't the most visually pleasing car, but it did put on some of the most banger races you've ever seen. It was just a great race car. And the Dale Jr. penalty in 2004, it wouldn't have made a single dang difference as the way the championship would have gone. Because even if you take away the penalty that he had in the spring, I don't remember what for. I'm sure someone in the comments will let me know. But he was only docked 25 points. And that cost him 5 points at the reset. And of course, he got docked 25 points for cursing on live TV. So that was a total of 30 points. And even if you give him back those 30 points, he is still nowhere near a championship. And this is, honestly, Junior fans, you guys are starting to annoy me more than Elliott fans. Like, you guys are starting to get bad. Just saying. Junior fans are so hung on 2004, like it's unbelievable. Like, they're all like, well, if this went this way and this went this way, then this would have happened. It's not the way it happened, and sure, it's cool to wonder what if, but when you have to make that many what ifs for one season, it just doesn't make a difference. And it probably wouldn't have happened if you had to make that many what ifs. At Grass Toucher 1234, Jimmy Johnson deserved all of his 7 championships. And I agree. I mean, Jimmy won with all the rules in place, and so he deserves to be the champion. People saying that these champions that are crowned nowadays are fake champions, I just think that's wrong. I mean, the champion is the guy that's crowned at the end of the season, regardless of format. And Jimmy won across 3 different formats. To me, he is a deserving champion. And a lot of people try to discount his credit because of Chad Canals, which, I mean, you have to have a good crew chief to be good. If you have a bad crew chief, it's not going to work out. I don't think that the championships he would have quote-unquote lost if the chase didn't exist, I don't think he really would have lost them. You got to think about it. 2007, I think he deserved it because he pulled off a historical feat to just beat Jeff Gordon. That is impressive in and of itself. So I think he deserved it. And in 2007, he was the second best driver behind Jeff Gordon. So I think he deserves it. In 2008, you know that if you watched my Breaking the Chase video on that season, Jimmy Johnson was ahead going into the final race, and Carl Edwards, he would stretch the fuel and end up winning it. But you know for sure, if that was the case going into that race, Jimmy wouldn't have taken 4 tires on that stop. He would have just got the gas and go and left, so he wouldn't lose that many points. That you just know it would have played out differently if he was that close. But in the real life, all he had to do was finish like 37th or 39th, one of the two, to win the championship. It would have just been different. And in 2010, he was the second best driver behind Kevin Harvick all year long. Then in 2016, 2016 is a little rough. It is the second worst statistical season by a championship winning driver. But yeah, I think he deserves all 7 of his championships, and he deserves the recognition he gets for it. At Rudy K5518, NBC is not as good as NASCAR fans say they are. The only reason they look good is because Fox is a clown show. NBC is decent at best, but they fail to prioritize NASCAR, and I fear that'll only get worse with a new TV deal. Honestly, I'm glad someone finally stepped up and said it. I'm not going to say that Fox is better than NBC or anything, but I don't think NBC is quite the saints that NASCAR makes them out to be. They consistently throw NASCAR off the primary network for news and other stuff, which I think is wrong, and I don't ever see Fox pulling that stuff. Now, I don't think the Fox broadcasts are as bad as everyone makes them out to be. They miss a few camera shots. I mean, most of the time they have replays. Sometimes they don't, and that is a little annoying, and I get it. But I don't think it's as bad as everybody makes it out to be, if I'm just being honest. At NBC, I will say, I do enjoy NBC trying new things, like very recently, the nonstop thing, which I think is a very good add to the sport. And I do like NBC. The coverage to me is better, and the booth is better. But I'm not saying the Fox booth is bad either. I just think the Fox booth needs to build that chemistry that Larry Mack, Darrell Waltrip, and Mike Joy had. I think when they do that, the booth on Fox will be much better. At GooeyBurger86, Richard Petty or Jimmy Johnson, neither are the GOAT. Instead, I would say Dale Earnhardt because he won his 7 championships under the most competitive era of NASCAR. And he won them with no playoffs and won them with the majority of the field being competitive compared to Petty, who had barely any competition. While he wasn't dominant as Petty or Johnson, he still won 76 races, and if he didn't die, I think he could have won 80 plus races and maybe even got to Gordon's win count. I think it was a couple weeks ago now, but I put out the GOAT debate video, or the top 10/GOAT debate video, whatever you want to call it, and you guys know that I consider Gordon the GOAT. But I think you could make a case for Petty, Johnson, Earnhardt, or Gordon to be the GOAT, and I won't disagree with you. They all had their fair share of accolades and stuff, and to me, you can make a good case for any of them. But to me, Petty isn't the GOAT because he raced in an era where there were maybe 3 good cars on the track, and he had the best car. Now Johnson, I think you can make a case for Johnson. I just think the thing that hurt his career the most was winning in a gimmicked system that was valuing entertainment over consistency. I just think that's why a lot of people are going to discount him, and I hate it for Jimmy, because he is truly like one of the greats of the sport. I think Gordon's just the GOAT because I think Gordon raced in the most competitive era of NASCAR, not Earnhardt. I think the most competitive era was like the mid-90s to like the early 2010s. That to me is probably the most competitive. Now, I don't think Earnhardt would have gotten to Jordan's win count. I think he maybe had 3 more seasons left in him. I think he maybe could have gotten to 80, but I'm not sure. From GD Surprises 5230. NASCAR should remove overtime from short tracks at least because it just ruins races every time. Also, Sheldon Creed is one of the biggest busts of this decade so far. Now, I'm going to break down the first part. The overtime thing, I think the thing at Nashville that happened, I think that was an anomaly because we have never had 5 overtimes, and that was just a record. So I don't think it's going to happen again anytime soon, but I think there needs to at least be some kind of limit on the amount of overtimes. Maybe 3 like it used to be. You guys know how I feel about Sheldon Creed. I think he's going to be a bust. I mean, he's been in top-notch Xfinity equipment for 3 years and still has failed to win. Now, I know a lot of people are going to compare him to Daniel Hemrick, but at least Hemrick was consistent. At least. And Hemrick almost won a championship despite winning 0 races. Creed is nowhere near that level. From Tristan W98, Austin Dillon is very underrated. Oh, I can already hear everybody getting mad at this one, but Austin Dillon, I think he's more of a driver that's overhated rather than underrated. Now, I don't think he's elite. I think Dillon is more of just an average cup driver. He's not great, but he's not terrible. I know the last 2 seasons have been god-awful for him. But before that, he was making the playoffs consistently. I mean, he would pop in a random win here and there. But Dillon, he's just very overhated because of the number he drives and where he comes from, which is granddad's money. I don't hate Austin Dillon. I think the movie he pulled a few weeks ago was egregious, but I don't think he's underrated. I just think he's very much overhated. Now, I put up that graphic a few weeks ago comparing him to Tyler Reddick in their time together, and everybody thinks Tyler Reddick just owned Austin Dillon in that time, but that wasn't the case. I mean, Dillon had a better average finish than Reddick, but that comes with being a rookie. From DeBoss43, the Xfinity Series is due for a new car. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing about the Xfinity Series. I love it. The racing's great. And, I mean, they might get a new car in the next few years, and they probably will, but for now, let's just enjoy the current generation of Xfinity cars while we have them. From Sam 8 Car Fan, only the top 16 in points can make the playoffs. Honestly, I think NASCAR needs to shift to this, because the win in your in system, to me, it's just bad. I'm happy for Harrison Burton. Like, it's just been a struggle for him, and I was really happy for him when I saw him win. I was shocked, but I was happy for him. Because just seeing how much he has struggled the last few years and seeing him get a win was good for him. I just think him making the playoffs masked what is truly like a great moment in the sport, and one that should be savored for years to come. But, you know, they want these moments, but I just think that this was one of the greatest moments, and it's masked by him making the playoffs and him most likely being 16th in points in a first round exit. From Penske, Joey Logano would own Kyle Larson any given day if he was driving for Hendrick. Well, judging by the profile picture and the name, I would say this is probably the most biased take ever. Joey Logano would be nowhere close to Larson, even if he did drive for Hendrick. From CarsBoy95, hot take about Larson. He is massively overrated. I know he's talented, but holy shit. The amount of people I see calling him the greatest driver in the world when he makes numerous rookie mistakes every year is ridiculous. Also, he's a very dirty driver and everybody seems to ignore that. Now, I do agree, Larson is a tad bit overrated, but I think some of the stuff that everybody glazes him for is pretty justified. I think he's the best driver in the Cup Series, there's no doubt in my mind about that. But also, I think he is the only driver in the Cup Series that could go to IndyCar or F1 and actually being competitive. I mean, I don't see Max Verstappen coming over here and driving stock cars, and I don't think he'd be good at it at all. I think he'd run like 30th every week. But anyway, Larson, he does make those rookie mistakes, but I think he just drives the car way too hard, and that's what makes those mistakes. Now, the dirty driver thing, yeah, he's had his moments, but he's also had his fair share where he's been on the short end of the stick on those dirty moments. I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Now, calling him the greatest driver in the world, it might be a stretch, but I think he could be that one day. From Bronze Cookie 7888, if not, then why would? Well, that's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I really enjoyed reading your comments, and I might do this again pretty soon. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time for another video. Y'all have a good one.